Hey everyone, hope everybody's doing okay. We are here at From the Woods today. I'm Billy Thomas and also have with me Renee Williams. Renee's in another location. She'll be joining us in a minute. But we've got a great show for you all today. We're really excited to have some special guests. We have Dr. Amanda Gumbert. We've had Mandy on here before, but there's some new updates to the Ag Water Quality Plan that people can use and access. Mandy will be talking about that. Then we have Laurie Thomas is going to be talking about the tree of the week. This is a pretty cool tree that you're going to see. And we have Dr. Ellen Crocker who's going to be talking not only about fungus, Renee, but also about what's bugging my tree this time of year. So a really good show. Hey, so Dr. Gumbert, if you don't mind, come join us and let us know what you got going on.
Good morning, everybody. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Kentucky Ag Water Quality Plan and some updates that we're seeing there.
Okay, wonderful.
So again, I'm Amanda Gumbert, and I'm an extension specialist for water quality here with the UK Cooperative Extension Service. And also I work a lot with Tammy Barnes, and I just want to go ahead and give a shout out to Tammy because she does a lot of work with our farmers with conservation practices and manure management. And she just is a great asset to our system. And she also helped me put these slides together. So I want to go ahead and give her credit there. But we're going to talk about the Ag Water Quality Plan. And the Ag Water Quality Act is the piece of legislation that created the Ag Water Quality Plan in Kentucky. So this was developed and passed, it was passed into law in 1994. And it says that any farmer or landowner that has 10 acres or more involved in agriculture or forestry needs to develop an Ag Water Quality Plan. And that plan is also needed for applying for state or local cost share programs. So programs that would incentivize our producers and landowners to put in conservation practices by providing a financial assistance piece to that. So those two programs that many of you are probably familiar with is something we call state cost share, which the official name is Kentucky Soil Erosion and Water Quality Cost Share Program. And that is run through your local conservation district office. And then also we have our CAPE program, which is our County Ag Investment Program. And some of those practices are more production oriented, but some of them also can be dovetailed with conservation. And so those two programs do require that you have an updated ag water quality plan, but everybody by law needs to have a plan. And that plan is a list of best management practices. We say BMPs for short. That will be implemented on the farm to protect water quality. So it doesn't really matter what kind of operation you have, whether you have livestock or crops, or if you just have a woodlot, if you're a woodland owner and you're actively managing that woodland, if you have a farmstead, so meaning if you have building structures, a home, on the farm, that's included as well. And the streams and other water section really deals with those stream corridors. And so sometimes we don't think of that as actually being a production area, but it certainly impacts our production. And so we want our plans to be up to date and reflect current farm activities. So if you were one of those you were an early adopter and you did your ag water quality plan, back in the 90s when we were first out of the gate, you probably need to revisit that plan because you've probably changed farming operations. So I want to give a few examples of what those BMPs though might look like. So one in forestry are streamside management zones. And so if you've done a harvest on your property, then you understand what those streamside management zones are. Essentially, it's just a stream buffer that's going to protect the soil and the landscape and protect water quality. So we're going to limit disturbance in the areas right adjacent to our streams. Another one in forestry is sinkhole protection, or if you have a sinking streams or a cave system on your property. Kentucky has a lot of karst topography, and so this is a dominant feature in our landscape. And we need to plan accordingly, not only for our own safety and for the safety of our animals and our equipment, but also to protect water resources. Those are, those open sinkholes and sinking streams, those are direct conduits to our groundwater. And in Kentucky, our groundwater and our surface water are interacting constantly. It's really hard to distinguish between those two water systems. So I mentioned farmsteads earlier, and one of the practices that you can adopt in your ag water quality plan are also septic systems. Or septic system maintenance really is what we should call it. And that is essentially making sure that your septic system is working properly, that you inspect it on a regular basis, and also, conserve water and not push too much water through that system. Also included in these BMPs are livestock best management practices. So things like a planned grazing system, and that's just rotational grazing, and then not overgrazing pastures. Those are things that make really good sense for production and for herd health, but they also can protect water quality because you avoid erosion and compaction issues and just overall have a better, higher quality soil resources. One I really like, which is akin to, I guess, the streamside management zones, is in a livestock or a cropping system. We call this riparian area protection. And so this is a nice shot of a livestock pasture that has trees that have been left along the stream banks. And not only are those tree roots holding soil in place along the stream banks, but they're also providing shade to our streams, and that's going to help wildlife populations within our stream systems. So I want to just touch a little bit about how we develop ag water quality plans. The first point of contact for you and your local community is the Conservation District Office. So there are 121 Conservation District offices in Kentucky. Logan County actually has 2 districts, so they have North Logan and South Logan. And so we have those conservation districts each have some personnel who work in those offices. They really are our first point of contact for developing ag water quality plans. Our county extension agents have also been updated on water quality plans, but primarily we look to the conservation districts for assistance. And you can also develop your own plan. So if you don't want to go to another agency for help, you can do this on your own. The thing I want to remind everybody is to make sure that you or the landowner knows what is included in their water quality plan. So it doesn't do much good if I complete a plan for you. It's best for you to be involved in the development of that plan. So you know what practices are there and you know how you're going to implement the practices or things that you might want to tweak or things you might want to apply for financial assistance to install. So previously, we have had resources through the Extension Service. We created a producer workbook several years ago, and that was, it was electronic, but you could also print it and fill it out by hand. And I just want folks to know that we've gone through some updates recently, and those are no longer up to date. And so we want to make sure that folks, if you are updating your ag water quality plan, that you use the most up-to-date tools. Because we, and I say we because I serve on the committee, there's the Kentucky Ag Water Quality Authority reviews all of the best management practices on a regular basis. And so we're constantly looking at the practices and what makes sense and what needs to be adjusted so that we're protecting water quality, but we're also supporting our farmers in their production systems. So the new ag water quality planning tool is now available as an e-form on the state website, the state of Kentucky, through the Energy and Environment Cabinet. And Renee, I think you have this link that's on the screen, and if you can drop that into the chat box for folks, that would be helpful. So this is the link to where you would go to find this form. And of course, it's just like anything else. You've got to set up a user account. And so this slide will tell you first and foremost, the best way to use this website is using Google Chrome as your browser. We have, it seems like we're always going through an update to a browser or which one works best with what platform. And so this platform does work best when we're using Google Chrome. So again, there's the website for it. And over in that yellow circle, you'll see a place where you can either sign in or register. And so some folks may have already been using e-forms on the state website. If you do other business with the state or you have other permits that you submit or need to apply for certain things. And so you may already have an account, and it's that Kentucky Online Gateway profile would apply to all of the forms that you might submit. So some of our dairy producers or swine producers might have a liquid manure management system, and they might have a Kentucky no discharge permit, and they would have done an application through this gateway. And so they might already have an account. So once you get through there, you're going to look for, and I am skipping a lot of steps because I don't think anybody wants a step-by-step tutorial today of how to use this tool, but just know that you are looking for this Kentucky Ag Water Quality Planning tool, and it is through the Department of Natural Resources. They also, so this is the same department that's going to handle those state cost share applications. So your local conservation district office is also going to be a great resource for this. Again, if you go to apply for state cost share, they might ask you, hey, do you have an updated ag water quality plan? And a pro tip here is that if you're applying for state cost share for this year, between now and November of this year of 2021, you will need to use this updated tool to develop your ag water quality plan, because it must be up to date. And we have, like I said, we've made updates and changes. And so we want folks to be up to date and have a plan that protects them as well as water quality. So this is just a general, I'm not going to go, you probably can't even see all the details here, but just know that you put in, the normal information, the farm name and your FSA number and approximate acreage and address. And the other tool on this particular page too is that you can display a map, because the application asks you for latitude and longitude. And so you can use the mapping tool that's embedded within this tool, because it's like technology on top of technology, right? That's what we do best here. Well, not me, but those who built this program. So you can display the map, and then you can locate your farm using that map tool. You can also use Google Maps on your phone to find the coordinates, and you can put those in by hand. So this is just a way for you to find where your farm's located. So after you go through, it's the same kind of setup as what we used before, which is asking you questions about what you do on your farm. Do you have livestock? How do you handle the livestock? Which crops do you grow? Do you use cover crops? Those kinds of questions. And then as you answer those questions, you can select from the suggested best management practices that are related to that particular type of production. And then you say, oh, well, I think I've already done that practice. And so you've already implemented it. Or maybe you plan to once you get some cost share dollars to help you do that. And in some cases, you might say, I'm just not interested right now. And as long as you select several BMPs or best management practices, then it will accept it. You can't say, nope, not interested on any of them. That's the one thing you cannot do. So at the end of the day, as you work through the tool, you will be creating a 2-page ag water quality plan. So for some folks, this is much more succinct than what we'd had before. Some of those tools, especially if it's the printed version that you're doing by hand, you have to hand transfer those. But this tool will put it all together for you in a nice 2-page document that you can print. Now, question being, this is the one that our farmers always ask. Can we do this as a printable document, and do we have to do it online? So can we do it offline, and can we do it as a printable, I'm going to fill it out by hand? And yes, you can. And so this is the other link that I think Renee has available for us. This is a PDF form that is online, and you can click on that and you can print off this document, and it is 13 pages. So not too much, but it has to be enough for us to be able to get the information that we need so our farmers, landowners have a plan available for them. So, okay, so who needs an updated plan? Again, anyone whose plan is outdated. So if I say, if you've got a plan that's more than 2 years old, go ahead and do an updated plan, because we've updated some best management practices. There might be a new one in there that fits your operation better. And so we want you to do that. If you're applying for state cost share this year and beyond, then you need to use this tool. If you're applying for CAPE this year, you don't necessarily need to use this tool and do an updated plan, but a plan is needed. So if you can't put your hands on the one you've got, just go in and do a new one. So I'm going to wrap this up just with reminding folks that there are some simple steps to protecting water quality on the farm. I know it can get cumbersome with this plan and that plan and all the steps we have to go through. But if you develop and implement a Kentucky Ag Water Quality Plan, and within that, a nutrient management plan, if you're applying fertilizer or manure, then you are doing the best job you can to protect water quality in Kentucky. And, you know, our water resources are super important to us, not only for the health of our farms and our livestock, but also for our own personal health, our human health. Get a soil test. Again, if you're going to apply fertilizer, find out what you need, because you might not need as much as you think. Install stream buffers. Like I said, those are my favorites. Put those trees and shrubs up against the stream banks and protect those. Handle your farm chemicals wisely. You know, don't use it if you don't need it, and only buy what you're going to use. And then finally, dispose of any dead animals properly. And these are, you know, if you follow these steps, not only will you protect water quality, but you'll also protect yourself in terms of following the law that we need to abide by to take care of our natural resources. So reminding you too that we're here to help. I'm Amanda Gumbert again, and here's my email address, and I'm happy to help answer questions that you might have. But you can also visit your local conservation district office, and they again should be your first point of contact in your community. And then certainly look for supporting resources at your extension office. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen, and thank you, Renee, for dropping those links down in the chat. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your presentation. We greatly appreciate it, you being on. And, you know, one thing that I've heard, you know, some people say is, you know, what I do is not affecting anyone else. And is that true, or is that not true?
Well, I mean, it kind of depends. That's kind of a loaded question, Renee. You know, in my opinion, everything that we all do impacts our water quality. You know, water is the thread that weaves us all together. And every action that we take, whether we're farmers and landowners, or we are urban residents, you know, regardless, everything that we do does impact our environment and ultimately through our water resources. So it's important. I like to drink clean water, and I think most of us do. And I certainly want my animals to have clean water too. So, you know, it's just the right thing to do to be a good steward of the land.
Well, and with the new tool, you all have made it easier than ever for people to get that plan completed, you know, and you can save money if you're not overusing chemicals or fertilizers that you don't need. It can make you eligible for some cost share programs. I'm trying to find the downside, Dr. Gumbert. Right? It's all good. It sounds like
hopefully it will be. Yes, it's just a new tool, so we all have a few growing pains to get adjusted to it. So yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for sharing this update with everyone. We appreciate it.
We do. All right. So moving on.
So from water to trees, we have our very own Laurie Thomas. Hey, Laurie.
Good morning. Good to see everyone.
So what tree are we talking about this week?
This week we were talking about the red mulberry, and this was actually requested by a viewer. They had so could we talk something about some of the mulberry trees? And so I'm focusing on our native mulberry, red mulberry today. It's a nice smaller understory tree that's not used as a ornamental real often, but it really should be encouraged some. It's a great attractant for birds and whatnot on your property. So something to think about while you sit here and listen to information about red mulberry.
Awesome. All right.
I'm Laurie Thomas with the University of Kentucky Forestry and Natural Resources Extension, and I'm here with the tree of the week, the red mulberry. Red mulberry, Morus rubra, is in the Moraceae family, which is a large family with more than 1,850 species, which are mostly found in warmer regions in the world. There are only 2 species of Morus or mulberry native to the United States, red mulberry and Texas mulberry. Red mulberry is often confused with the non-native invasive white mulberry. It is a deciduous tree that ranges in height from 15 to 70 feet tall and up to 20 inches in diameter. Trees can live up to 125 years. It tends to have a rounded crown with a short trunk. The wood is not commercially important due to its size and lack of abundance, but red mulberry's fruit is of value because it's eaten by people, birds, and small mammals. Red mulberry is native to the eastern half and to the Midwest of the United States, from New York, south to Florida, and west into Texas and Kansas. It grows on a wide variety of sites, including moist, well-drained soils of coves and floodplains, field borders, and pastures, and it tolerates a wide range of soil pH. It grows best in the open, but is often an understory tree and is somewhat shade tolerant. This species attains its largest size in the Ohio River Valley and reaches its highest elevation in the southern Appalachian foothills. Red mulberry can hybridize with the non-native white mulberry throughout its range. Red mulberry is deciduous with alternately arranged simple leaves, as you can see in the photo. The leaves are somewhat circular or oval in shape and highly variable. Some leaves have no lobes and others have numerous lobes. They are typically 3 to 5 inches long and have serrated leaf margins. They are green above and the surface is somewhat rough like fine sandpaper, and the underside is paler and somewhat fuzzy. Autumn color is yellow to golden yellow, and the leaves of white mulberry, which is the one it's often confused with, tend to be smaller and they have a smooth, shiny surface is the easiest way to tell them apart. This species is usually dioecious, which means there are separate male and female trees, but can occasionally be monoecious with male and female flowers on different branches of the same tree. The male flowers are in hanging catkins that are about 1 to 2 inches long, and the smaller female flowers are also in catkins. Both male and female flowers bloom in late spring and are wind pollinated. The fruit resembles a blackberry. It's cylindrical in shape and about 1 to 1 1/4 inches long, and it's composed of multiple drupes. Each drupe contains a small seed. The fruit starts out greenish white and ripens to dark purple in summer. Fruit sometimes falls near the tree, but is usually consumed before becoming completely mature by fruit-loving animals who then disperse the seeds after they have passed through their digestive tracts. Trees can begin producing fruit at 10 years of age, with best fruit production between 30 and 85 years. Trees typically have good seed crops every 2 to 3 years. The bark is often orangish in color on young trees, and as the tree ages, the bark darkens to a grayish-brown with irregular, long, scaly ridges, and the inner bark is tough and fibrous. The wood is relatively weak with a golden brown to reddish-brown heartwood and pale yellowish sapwood. It is similar in appearance to Osage orange wood. It is ring porous with large early wood pores, the wood that's formed in the spring, and small late wood pores, the wood that's formed later in the summer. It is rated as durable to insect resistance and weather properties. Red mulberry is a valuable wildlife tree. Many animals consume its delicious, abundant fruit, including possums, raccoons, squirrels, bluebirds, indigo buntings, gray catbirds, towhees, mockingbirds, and numerous other fruit-loving birds. The twigs and foliage are often browsed by white-tailed deer, and the bark is consumed by beaver. It is also a host plant for the red admiral and the morning cloak butterfly. Red mulberry is seldom harvested for its timber due to its small size and its scattered distribution. It is used for smaller pieces in carving and wood turning or for fence posts and farm implements. It is also better known for its fruit, which is used to make jams, jellies, pies, and beverages. It is also occasionally planted for its fruit and as an ornamental. The national champion red mulberry as of 2021 is in Ashley, Arkansas. It is 305 inches in circumference, 75 feet tall, with a 71-foot crown spread. Currently, there isn't a Kentucky champion listed as of 2021. If you'd like to know more about national champion trees, check out American Forest's National Champion Trees or check out the Kentucky Division of Forestry Champion Trees. Red mulberry is often confused with the invasive and now naturalized white mulberry, which is a native of Asia but was introduced to the U.S. during colonial times to try to establish the silkworm industry here. The leaves of the white mulberry are the primary food source for the silkworm, whose cocoon is used to produce silk. Raising silkworms is very involved, and the worms are very sensitive to changes in temperature and humidity, which made sericulture challenging and expensive, thus limiting silk production in the United States. Now for a few fun facts about red mulberry. In 1607, early English colonists mentioned red mulberry due to the abundance of the delicious fruit. Native Americans, including the Choctaw, wove clothing from the inner bark of the young red mulberry trees, and they also used other parts of the tree to make worming medicines and a remedy for dysentery. It was reported in Arkansas that more than 31 species of birds visited red mulberry trees to eat the fruit. The scientific genus name Morus is from the ancient Greek name mora, the mulberry tree, and the species name rubra is from the Latin, which means red, and most likely refers to the fruit. I hope you get the opportunity to get out into your woodland, a local park, or neighborhood and enjoy the beautiful trees of our state and maybe get to sample some of the red mulberry fruit.
Well, Lori, thank you for that presentation. We greatly appreciate that. And you know that I don't think I've ever seen a mulberry tree with all that fruit on it. I would think they were blackberries.
Yep, you would, but they're pretty common actually. I mean, that you find them in thickets and whatnot. I can think of just around Lexington at most of our local parks. There are probably a lot of times white mulberry that's grown there, but you also the hybridized, so it could be red and white, kind of hybridized. So to tell the difference between the two, feel the leaves. The red mulberry is going to feel like fine sandpaper, and it won't be shiny. And white mulberry is going to be smooth and shiny and lustrous. The leaves are. So, but yeah, they're pretty common trees. We've got one across the street that's actually a white mulberry in a neighbor's yard. But
So is the fruit the same? Go ahead.
it is. The fruit is. I mean, it looks the same and everything, but supposedly, and I don't know that I've never done a taste comparison side by side, but red mulberry, supposedly the fruit is sweeter, a little bit sweeter than white mulberry fruit. So, and that's if you ever get it. I mean, it's usually birds, like I said, a lot of times the fruit is taken before it even completely ripens. So your chances of getting them, I know when I worked in parks, we'd sit and watch the mulberry tree out there and go, okay, it's going to be ripe today. Tomorrow we come in and there'd already be cedar waxwings on it and stuff. So
Feeding the birds, that's okay.
yeah, exactly.
It reminded me the leaves and their variability, like sassafras, there's not, so that should really help maybe in your identification aid when you see.
Right, and that's another tree that it's confused with a lot of times because it's got those mitten shaped leaves. It can have that whole leaf, or it can have the mitten leaf, or it can have multiple, glove leaf with lots of different fingers on it. So
very cool. Another awesome tree, Laurie. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
All right.
Good deal.
Moving on to our mushroom segment this week. We have Dr. Ellen Crocker. Thank you for joining us today.
All things forest health, yes.
Well, and today I'm filling in for Megan Bueland, who's been doing the mushroom section. And today we're going to talk about one of the most common mushrooms that I see. And this is a good one for all of you that are out there kind of doing any programming or teaching people, naturalists in the woods, because you will find this one any time of year. So we've got a short little clip to play for you.
This is Trametes versicolor, the turkey tail mushroom. Trametes is a really easy fungus for people to identify when they're just starting out learning about mushroom ID. It's a basidiomycete. It's a shelf fungus and a saprophyte, so it feeds on decaying hardwoods. Some saprophytes feed on conifers as well, but Trametes versicolor feeds on hardwood species. You can identify Trametes by the beautiful zones of color that it has along the top. That color will vary. It can be blues, greens, purples, sometimes reddish browns, but we'll always have these bands of zoned color. And in really nice fresh specimens like what we have here, the very margin of the fruiting body is going to be white. And that's a nice fresh fungus. As they get a little bit older, that white will fade to be a uniform brown with the edge of the fruiting body. Trametes versicolor has pores on the underside rather than gills or spines or any other kind of fruiting structure.
I think I
Right, so
have seen that.
Yeah, I'm sure you have. So this is the turkey tail mushroom. And believe it or not, some people actually use it for kind of medicinal purposes. It's supposed to improve your immune system. And you'll find it in a lot of kind of mixes. Like, I don't know if you've seen them in the grocery store, but kind of like mixes, mushroom kind of drink mix type things. This is not something you would ever eat. It's hard and tough.
I was going to ask you, because they're pretty tough when you're
So-
trying to get them off of things.
When people prepare it, they prepare it, differently. But it's really common, and you'll see it, when it's fresh, like in those photos, it had just kind of emerged. But all year long, that fungus is living in that dead wood. It's breaking it down. So it's kind of one of nature's recyclers, just breaking down dead wood. And not kind of a concern, not something that's going to be a pathogen and cause disease, cause rot. It does break down wood, but it's going to be in that dead wood. And kind of another fun fact about this is that there are lots of lookalikes to turkey tail. So you might see something and it looks on the top. For any amount of money, you would bet that it's turkey tail, like those pictures that she showed. But if you were to flip it over and look on the underside, you'd actually see that instead of pores, it's completely smooth. Or maybe it even has gills, or maybe it has jagged little tooth-like projections. So that's super important in mushroom ID, is that underside of the cap. For distinguishing different species. And turkey tail is one of those that you might look at the top and be like, oh, it's a turkey tail, flip it over and it's totally smooth. We have a false turkey tail, which is a total different species, a total different genus. Looks really similar on the top, but actually very, very different.
Very interesting. Important to know what you're dealing with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Yeah. And this is one that if I get an email about it, it's a nice one because it's like you don't have to be concerned about it. It is a very normal part of our kind of ecosystems, whether you're in the woods, or I think there's some in my backyard right now on some of the kind of stepping stone logs I've got in my daughter's playground. If you've got wood, it will break it down, but it's not going to cause disease in your trees.
I noticed I have some of that in my garden area, that I have a wooden garden fence. So yeah.
Well, next time you're out, like look on the underside and see, because you'll see some different things. And that's a fun thing to do if you're out in the wood with kids or, another group, to try to look at what it is. And there are lots of other mushrooms in the same genus, Trametes. So, it's just the tip of the iceberg.
Very cool. Well, thanks, Megan and Ellen, for covering the mushroom. That's really cool. It's a fun segment. I know we get emails and pictures all the time about mushrooms and other things. So
yeah, and I want to give a special shout out to if you are interested in this and you want to learn more, there's some great groups in the area, especially the Bluegrass Mycological Society. I'd encourage you to check out their Facebook, and also some of their members have kind of live events too, where you can go and learn more in person. And there's nothing better than that.
yeah, what a great group. Yeah, thank you, Ellen. Very, very cool.
Yeah. All right.
We're sticking with Ellen, though.
Sticking
right?
with Ellen, yeah. So
You can't get rid of me yet.
We
I
wouldn't want to, but it's not mushrooms that's bugging our trees. What is it?
I know, what is bugging our trees? So this is something that, it's summertime. You might notice some weird growths, especially on leaves in the summertime, strange looking things on your leaves, and wonder to yourself, is this a problem? When did this happen? And do I need to be concerned? So today's What's Bugging My Tree is all about galls, especially a lot of those summertime leaf galls. And I'll walk you through some of the most common ones, and in most cases, the insects that cause them. But the good news is that while they might be really striking, most of these galls, these leaf galls, they don't really hurt trees. So you might notice them, but the trees can deal with that just fine. Or if they do, it's pretty minor. There are some galls that can be more problematic, but most of the galls that we see this time of year on the leaves, pretty minor impact. What's that weird thing on your tree's leaves? Midsummer is a time when I get lots of calls about galls, abnormal growths on trees. While lots of different things can cause galls, most of the ones that we see in our area are caused by insects that have found a clever way to turn these leaves into their food and their house. In this edition of What's Bugging My Tree, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of those summertime tree galls, some of the most common ones you might see, and the insects that cause them. Galls are a general term for irregular plant growths. This can come in lots of different shapes, sizes, and places, from barely noticeable to weird tumor-like swellings. Galls can occur anywhere on the plant, from leaves to bark to flowers to roots. Different things can trigger the formation of galls in plants. Some are caused by pathogens like fungi and bacteria. Some are part of the plant's natural wound response to some kind of damage. But the most common cause of galls on our shade trees are insects and mites. Insect galls are frequently caused by the development of a wasp or fly larvae inside the plant, with the insect emitting different growth regulating chemicals that cause the plant to produce this abnormal growth. The insect gains nutrients from the inner gall tissue and also protects itself against natural enemies, and much to the disappointment of gardeners, insecticide sprays that make the galls really difficult to control. Here you can see the ash flower gall. It's caused by small mites that distort those male flowers of the ash trees. The galls are initially green, and then they'll dry and they'll turn a brown color. Unlike the healthy flowers that you might see, these are gonna stay on the tree through the winter. And you might wonder, what are those brown balls up in my ash tree? Those are the ash flower galls. Another really common gall that I see all the time and love to play with, especially with kids, is the hackberry nipple gall. These are small aphid-like insects called psyllids that have sucking mouth parts. If you carefully cut them open, you may even see a tiny developing psyllid inside. The adults look just like tiny cicadas, and they can be a nuisance when the cold weather comes and they try to find shelter indoors, sometimes in large numbers. But they're harmless to both people and hackberry trees, which aren't hurt by these galls, although they can be prolific in number. They're really easy to find on the underside of hackberry leaves, but if you look at them, you'll notice that the upper surface of those leaves is still green, they're still photosynthesizing, and it doesn't really hurt the tree too much. Even poison ivy is not immune from getting galls. Here you can see some with galls that are produced by tiny little mites. Warty growths on the upper surface that are quite common in our area. These really noteworthy galls are called elm sac galls, and they're caused by an aphid and have this deep red color. If you open them inside the right time of year, you're going to find them filled with tiny little aphids. Despite their appearance, they don't really hurt the tree. Oak trees in general are host to so many different insects, and this applies when it comes to galls, with hundreds of different gall-causing insects on oak trees. Oak apple galls, which are large, spongy growths that then turn papery when they get old. Jumping oak galls, which are tiny little galls that you see on the underside of leaves that are caused by tiny little wasps. And they're really easy to miss, although you might notice the leaves turning a little brown on the upper surface. If you flip it over, those tiny little dots will each have one tiny little gall. Maple spindle galls are another common gall this time of year, with these kind of really eye-catching spiky spindles on the upper surface of maple leaves, particularly sugar maple. You might also see what are called maple bladder galls, which on silver and red maple tend to be more warty galls that occur on the upper surface, and those are caused by mites. You might even see the maple eye spot gall, which, as its name implies, kind of looks like an eye. Particularly on red maples, you'll see these occasionally, and they're caused by a small fly. It's a leaf miner that is going to have a little larvae right in the center of that eye. So if you peel it back, you might find it. While galls might look bad, they don't really damage trees and mostly aren't worth your time from a management perspective. This is really true of those leaf galls that we just talked about that might look really eye-catching and striking, but they don't really hurt those trees. Those trees can still photosynthesize through the summer just fine. But if you really don't like them, there are some insecticide options out there on your landscape trees. However, I would say that the timing is really tricky on those, because by the time you notice that damage, that gall has already been in your tree for a while, been maturing, and is going to be really hard to control until the following spring. And then that timing is really key, because you're thinking of the timing that happens maybe at bud break, when those insect females are laying those eggs. The most damaging galls are those that impact the twigs and the formation of new growth and tissue. Things like horned oak gall or gouty oak gall. Most of the time, though, even these aren't a problem if you just have a gall here or there. But if you have stressed landscape trees, or maybe a low diversity of trees in an area that these galls can just sweep through, you might see a lot more. If you can catch those early, you can prune them out. Otherwise, management can be really difficult because insecticides are typically not very effective. Thanks for joining me today in this tree tidbit and learning a little bit more about the diversity of summer galls. If you liked what you learned today, make sure to check us out online and follow us on social media.
Well, Ellen, thank you for that segment. I always look forward to these. I always learn stuff that I had never known. I've seen half of those most of the time and always wondered what was wrong with the tree.
Yeah, and right now is a time when there are lots of them around. I just went, out to the front lawn of my office the other day and found, a half dozen of different oak galls alone. Oak trees in general can host this huge diversity of different insects, and galls are no exception. And so it's kind of cool to go out to a tree and just, see how many different species one single tree is supporting. And for most of these, that impact is going to be very minimal on that tree. The exception being those ones that impact those new shoots, those twigs, those branches. Obviously, that's going to reduce the ability of that tree to put on new growth. Now, you will get years and you will get situations where you could just have a tree that's completely covered, let's say with jumping oak gall. And from a distance, it might even look like that tree is dying. All of the leaves are brown. You might wonder what's going on with my tree. And you get up close and you look at those leaves and you see those little galls on the underside. That can certainly stress trees out. But most of the time, that's not something that's going to happen year after year, and it's something that those trees can recover from. So in the grand scheme of things, not a major issue, but something that's pretty cool and interesting to observe when you're checking out your trees.
A whole nother world out there that probably often goes overlooked. Thanks, Ellen. Glad to hear too that they're not really that big of a threat to a lot of our trees. So.
Every time I've seen them, I've been worried that my tree was going to die. So
yeah, this is a good news story. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on today.
All right. Thanks for letting us know what's bugging our trees.
Yeah.
Excellent. Good segments, Renee.
Yeah, definitely. We had, a lot of segments today on different things, everything from water to woods to, trees and that kind of thing. So it worked out really well. And, I think the folks can learn a lot of stuff, and they can also go back and watch other things that we've done in the past. They can go to fromthewoodstoday.com and see any episode. I think we almost have like 70 or so now on the website. So I know if you're like me, I know I've said this before, but if you're like me and you're like, what did she say about that? I'm not quite sure. You can always go back and watch us.
Yeah, without a doubt, Renee. We also have a tremendous number of other videos up there as well. So on a wide variety of topics. So you could sit and watch videos for days and days.
Yeah,
and learn a lot. Yeah.
we actually had someone that said, you need to talk about your YouTube channel more because you have videos on there, and I've spent at least a week just watching them. So that works out for me.
Well,
So,
and as Laurie said, we featured a tree that she got a request from a viewer. So just as a reminder, if there's stuff that you're seeing out in your woods or you'd like to learn more about, let us know. We have a little survey on our FromTheWoodsToday.com where you can kind of fill that out real quick. You can even submit a picture if you've seen something that you're not sure what it is out in the woods. Let us know and we'll try to address it.
I know Dr. Springer has gotten snake pictures and things like that from the show, wondering what it was, and he's featured them on a snake ID before. So, it just depends on, we may end up running your picture. You never know. So submit those and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, folks, again, thanks for being with us this week, and we look forward to seeing you next week on From the Woods Today.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.